I'm on the corner of Heath and Howley Street, and just down behind me is Timbrell Park. And I'm working on the proposition here that I need to pop up to Coles on the new cycleway, which is going to be built past here, to get a bag of shopping. I've got my trusty backpack here, and I'm just after what you might call a dinner shop. Some steaks and beans and a couple other bits and pieces. Enough to fill one backpack or one bag, and that's all. So let's see how long it's going to take to get from this intersection up to Coles and back again, and have a look at the intersections along the way to see how safe this is. Now, you might be thinking, why do this? Well, 1.5 kilometres is a little bit too far to walk on a regular basis, but it's a very easy cycle. I mean, people go down to the Bay Run here and do nearly 7 kilometres, walk around there, but it's an interesting psychological thing that as soon as you say to them, well, why don't you walk a kilometre to the shops? I can't do that. Well, could you ride 1.5 k's or a bit under a mile in the old parlance to the shops? That's a very easy distance to do. So let's give it a crack.
As you can see from that clip, I'm old enough to have some grey hairs and I'm not exactly skinny. So how long did it take me to get to the bike racks outside Coles and Fred Kelly Place, following the route of the east-west cycleway? Well, according to my GPS, it was 5 minutes and 22 seconds. Now, I know that a car can move faster than a bike, but when you take into account the need to go through 2 sets of traffic lights and get into the car park and find a parking spot and then walk across the car park to the escalator and go up the escalator, door to door, I reckon using the bike is twice as quick as driving. At peak hour, it is much, much faster to cycle this kind of distance. What this shows is that the east-west cycleway is good for more than just moving long-distance commuters from North Strathfield to the city. It should also be used for short, local trips to areas like the 5 Dock shops. So what we're looking at in this video is how fit for purpose the cycleway will be for this type of trip. If it's quick, convenient and safe, then some residents will see the sense in getting out of their car for some shopping trips and doing them by bike instead. The crossings at both sides of 5 Dock Park have been covered in another video, so we'll leave them out. As far as going shopping by bike in 5 Dock goes, there are 3 main issues. First, the intersection with East Street would need to be improved because it is the obvious route up to Coles if you're on a bike. If this route becomes popular, there will be a lot more bike traffic coming out of East Street and turning into the cycleway. 2. The top of East Street needs better ramps to allow transition between the road and the paved area where you park your bike. 3. The current setup of bike parking heavily favours Coles at the expense of all the other small businesses in the 5 Dock area. What if I want to buy some steak from Caminides? There's nowhere to park and lock the bike. Same outside the 5 Dock meat market. The lack of bike parking is driving me into the arms of Coles. There's plenty of room next to Jada's Cafe for a bike rack that would serve customers wanting to get a coffee there or up at Rocco's. There's also room for bike parking on the other side where Buttercrumbs is located. Right now, your only option is to lock your bike against a signpost, and that's pretty limited. And you can only get one bike there. What if there's a couple of you? It's pretty much the same for every small business up and down Great North Road. There has been a great deal of focus over the years to create as much car parking as possible around 5 Dock to make it easy and convenient for locals to visit the small businesses, but almost no focus on providing convenient bike parking. If I'm picking up a box of pills from the chemist, I don't need a car to lug them home. If I need to visit the bank to get some cash, I don't need a car to carry that home either. I don't need to drive to an accountant to get my tax done or a barber to get a haircut. I'll use the car if I have to lug home, say, 30 kilos of groceries from the supermarket, but not all trips to 5 Dock shops are like that. Now, why should this matter? If we go back and look at the 5 Dock Town Centre strategy from 2012, we find some interesting results from the surveys of shoppers. For instance, nearly 92% of those surveyed said they lived locally, although how local is not defined. But it must be fairly close because 65% of shoppers said they walked to the shops, while only 49% drove. That means they must live pretty close, because we know most people won't walk farther than 800 metres or so. This graph is in miles, but it shows that walking drops off very quickly beyond 1 kilometre. So let's think about how we can use the cycleway to encourage some locals to cycle to the shops instead of walking. Here's the cycleway route. The streets in purple are close to the cycleway, and Coles is a 1 to 1.5 kilometre cycle from most of the houses in this area. It's a bit far to walk with a bag of shopping, but as we've seen, it's an easy 5-minute ride. The streets in green close to Coles are where walking is the better option. Unless you're doing, say, a $200 shopping trip to Coles that will fill up a trolley to the brim, I can't see many people driving to Coles from, say, 2nd Avenue. The grey areas are where you really have no choice but to drive to Coles, or any of the other shops in the area for that matter. If you live north of Barnestaple Road, there is no safe way to join the cycleway in the current design. Casual cyclists won't ride from, say, Wareemba to Coles because Great North Road is just too intimidating. The installation of flower beds and other beautification works has created pinch points that really wrecked Great North Road as a safe cycling option when getting to the shops from the north. If you live down towards Parramatta Road, just forget it. There's too many rat runners driving too quickly and no safe crossings at intersections. The interesting area is just to the north of 5 Dock Park. If I lived here, would I cycle to Coles? Well, if I was a casual cyclist and not confident and uncomfortable with traffic, I'd have to say no, because Barnstaple is not a nice place to ride. Would I cycle to the Bay Run from here? Well, again, if I was a uncomfortable amateur cyclist, I'd have to say no. I hate cycling on Ingham Avenue as it is, because traffic moves way too fast both north and south of Barnstaple, and again, I wouldn't cycle down Barnstaple Road to the Bay Run instead of taking the cycleway down to Timbrell, because there's lots of speeding drivers and closed passes on Barnstaple, and it just happens way too frequently for me to ever want to do that again. So when we look at the cycleway in terms of local connectivity, it's really only going to provide limited improvements to a small area just east of 5 Dock Park. So whilst the overall route is great, more thought definitely needs to be put into how it can be tied into each neighbourhood along the way to provide better local connections.